Well, hello, here we go. I'm going to, and you can read my information if you want, explaining what I'm going to try to present here in a more visual form. I'll use words with it, but what's the old saying, even though it probably doesn't apply with this invention? And look at old Paul Revere back there over my right shoulder. He's pondering. Well, it's a good picture because that's how this has evolved. A lot of pondering, critical evaluation, testing, vetting, and it stood the test of time and my passion. And we're here now. So today we are going to talk about how I use my archaeological skills and how they've mutated and evolved up along with my geometric knowledge and testing to fuse into a new invention on how these sciences or technologies can be applied to excavating a book or curating it. Almost 400 pages, a great book, Antonio Damasio. And we're going to go over today how one goes about, how I go about with my overview that I've talked about from ever since childhood, and walking the fields, picking up items, having the great knowledge and ability of talent to start to collate those items I found into assemblies of collections, and then using research out there, languaged research, to understand more of the detail that's already there and combine all that to create a scenario or a story that's very interesting and also has a depth to it. That if this is on the surface, then if a true established old system or different system than what I've evolved here on this of archaeological excavation was to go out there, and now with the sonar and the surveys and the drones, they could find items that are below the surface of the farming level that have never been disturbed. And then they can follow the total archaeological format of excavation and creating the records of what they find and extrapolating and interpreting what they mean. Woo! I'll tell you, I think I'm a good talker, but at least I'm not talking as slow as I was in the first videos. Okay, here we go. I chose Antonio Damasio because one thing we're all having to deal with is those days, those weeks, those years where things get us off kilter, knock us off balance. They label a lot of that as, well, you're feeling depression or you're feeling down. Feelings evolve and cycle all day with us. That's our biological, chemical makeup. And, labeling them and making them a problem or an issue, that's fine at times. But one has to be careful with that, because that labeling stereotypes and gives up our thinking to rise above it, because there are tools out there that at times replenish our energy and our positive motivation. And that's what I've done with our website library. And you can find this book, The Feeling of What Happens by Antonio Damasio, in the library. If you look to the right of the picture of me on my homepage on YouTube, there's a link there to the website. You go to the website, and on the homepage, the first thing we use is a strong comment by Antonio Damasio. And what this is telling us is that, and what he's telling us, is that in most cases, much of what he covers in here with the research and the thinking about how our minds work and how we actually accept the fact we have a self-identity, that we have a personality, and we have empathy and decision making. All that's in here, but this is very strong research science, but he tries to put it in the layman terms, and he does a pretty darn good job of it. So what I did is, with these SWPS series that I do, I use my archaeology and my geometry equations and research to skim and read back and forth and wait sometimes in the morning when my attitude and mentality might be a little more down or up, and evening, weekends, when I'm not thinking about my regular work. And I come back and go back to things. And what I can pick up are certain valuable feelings. So how do I come up with these feelings? Well, we have our experiential intelligence since we were born and before. And that denotes about everything we experience. And then we create our, or assemble our values, beliefs, convictions. So those two together fuse like that, and that creates our judgment and our routines, our rituals, our habits, and how they evolve, and our self-identity. And also, which is a biggie, but yet it's so simple, it's because so much of it's just habits and you can't keep it in your mind because you wouldn't have enough room for anything else. And that is your choosing and ranking of everything. I choose to wear glasses right now. No, so big deal. Those are simple things, but there is a lot deeper things that Damasio talks about. And on certain points in your life, whether it's family, crisis, or just being down about the world, or some big tragedy that hits, you'll resolve and cope with it with the skills you've developed. But the insights that you can turn back to, if you've archived the SWPS series that I created from this book that you can find in the library, and you went ahead and completed the response report following the equation and formula that I created with my archaeological mentality of dissection, of going through this book and finding the best hotspots that really deal with an important agenda. Sure, there's much more in here of detail. And on these SWPS series, you'll see I even put the book pages where I gathered this content, so you can go to the book if you want. So let's start with this. And what I did is, and now let's see if we can find it. Okay. So I dissected. This is the way the formula works. I don't know if you can see it, but when you read it, get that hand off of it. There you go. If you see it, you'll see there's an SB at the top, and it's circled in pencil. You have to do pencil because as this evolves, it changes. So it's in pencil, and that's a summation box. That's kind of the intro of the hotspot wisdom in this book that's been identified through my archaeological excavation of what's really going to be something powerful in this SWPS series. So this portrait, that's going to be the summation box at the top. And then you'll see there are numbers under that. And there's an RTH to the side of it. And those four numbers identify the sections of the sections of sentence phrases that will be brought out of this book and positioned around the 4 or 8 sides of the RTH that's in the middle box of the portrait. This is the heart, the encapsulation, the true essence of what this dissected hotspot is really trying to bring to you more deeply in your thinking. And the right brain and the whole brain will kind of be working separately and in left. That was the design of this three component portrait, is that the left brain wants to read and interpret, but the right brain understands there's a rule on where you move around on the portrait, which box you read first. And you're supposed to embrace the heart of it first, RTH, not immediately go up to the top and start reading left to right like we're so scripted from our language education. And then there's the conclusion box at the bottom. And I don't know, maybe that's not that legible in the book. So I took a photocopy of it. And I don't know if it's easier to read. There's a summation box. And then there's the RTH with the 4 underlines. So you circle the summation box with a pencil. You find and select and put them in the order that they are presented in the chronological page, 1, 2, 3, 4. Those are the 4 sides of a 4-sided RTH. And then you find a conclusion box and you circle it. Now, obviously, you've got to be a little bit frugal about how much you use. So that's what I've done. Now, then I've got support staff, and I'm very grateful for them, that transform. Of course, once I've done this, then I use a software program called DragonSpeak. And I go through and I relay what I've selected, number it, the sides with it, and everything. And it becomes a written document that I can then send to one of my support people. And they know how to follow the format. And from that, they create this. And this is the words that were circled, the summation box up top, what was underlined for the 4 sides, the 4-sided RTH heart of it, and what was circled for the conclusion box. So this is, and then it's got to be tweaked a little bit for typos and make sure everything is correct. But that now is one of the portraits that will exist of the 7. And we put them in an order that flows with the book and the content. And you'll also notice right here, I've got the pages where that content was dissected. And I don't try to rewrite the language. I try to use it exactly as the author, Damasio, said it. So Antonio Damasio offers suggestions that I have captured with these 7 portraits. Once you complete the response report with this SWPS series of 7 on his book, you can read more down the road, but he suggests your everyday thinking in the common reality of the world, you probably don't want to be thinking about your consciousness and your autobiography consciousness and all these things. You know, what are you going to go do with it? You're going to talk about it when you're out with friends having a beer? Or are you going to talk about it on the afternoon when you're together with? Probably not. But what this really will help you is as you build this archive of response reports from the library, including this one, and you can go over and look at what I captured on the homepage and the website, and then you can go over and you can download the response report. But it's tactile. Tactile is extremely important with this because what you are capturing is deeply who you are, who you've been, and who you are. Now, with all the AI out there, there's going to be a lot more influence on who you think you are or how you present who you are in the future. But this is the only true example, what you can gather from this and from the other SWPS reports, of how you used your self-awareness, your self-identity without the influences of AI and recorded it. And that will become it's going to become extinct if you don't do it now. Anything that you do in the future will have more of the influence of AI on it. It'll still be good. And in some ways, maybe you'll like it better, but it won't truly be you. Who you are, who you were, who you're going to be, using your experiential intelligence and your values, beliefs, and convictions. That fused self-identity. When you use your judgment for choosing and ranking. So that's the best I can do on this. And you know, does it really matter? Look there, Paul. Does it really matter? I think it does. And I think it'll matter even more in difficult times to go back and have that common community with what Damasio says, but it's really that common community with you because you responded with choosing and ranking to what I selected as hotspots of importance out of this, The Feeling of What Happens book. What a name. So it's really a three-way geometry. It's your responses to what Antonio Damasio, his responses in sharing and writing, and then together you're looking at what the news media is hammering you with about this tragedy or this catastrophe, or that this needs more funding or this needs that. I'm not saying there isn't some positive stuff at times, but you know, there's just so much that everybody feels they're lacking or they need or they're, God, I hate to use the word, entitled to. And it just creeps into you. And so to manage it or to balance it or energize through it, these SWPS, you know, sure, you can go to therapy. That'll be good if you need. You can, TV, Netflix, video games, blah, 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 blah. You can do all kind of things, and that's great. You can do entertainment. That's energizing in a way. But it doesn't give you any thinking tools that evolve and integrate your experiential intelligence, values, beliefs, and convictions that you have been carrying your whole life and evolving with your self-identity. And it really is the pot of gold that you need to keep in hand and cash into at times. So enough said for now. And hopefully I said it with some kind of articulated logic and simplify. Oh, I'd love to simplify. Let's see what we can do as we try. Take care.